Hi, it is Dustin back again with Dustin's Dollars. Today I'm going to be talking again about Knightscope. Um, Before I begin, let me remind you, I am not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial professional. Everything that you see expressed in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. So don't take advice from me because everything I say could be wrong. And this should be only for entertainment purposes only, if I didn't already say that. So that being said, let's get into it and talk about Knightscope. And yeah, there's our chart for today. And it was painful. You know, we watched our investment drop another 23%, and we are now down back below our IPO listing price, whatever you want to call it, of $10. So that's, a bit painful. But, like I've said before, this is gonna be a wild ride, especially in the short term. I mean, even over the medium term, right? Like this company is going to be very, very much in. They're very much in startup mode, and this is very much the stock is in price discovery mode, where nobody really knows what the company's worth, right? You can make a reasonable argument that it's going down to zero. Oop, I'm sorry. Hope that wasn't too loud for you. Was my mic still connected? Yeah, we're still good. Sorry about that. But I think there's also, as we've talked about before, a huge market for these robots, and so there's a good argument to be made that this company is going to be very, very valuable in the future. Um, but I did want to laugh just real quick before I get into my main material of the financial media is just ridiculous. So I noticed this as I was, well, we're not scrolling. There we go. Um, so this was a couple days ago, right? When we rocketed up. This was on Friday. It was when we closed. I don't even remember what we closed at $20 or something. $16. That was it, and we were effectively doubled that day. 176% gain. And they say announcing a new. I hope you can read it there. I hope it's not too small. Announcing a new Fortune 500 customer was all it took for Knightscope to boost its share well past their public offering price. Yeah, I'm sure it was that one customer announcement, that one robot sale that did it. That's absolutely ridiculous because then, what does that mean? Yesterday, when we landed yet another casino contract, so we sold one more robot, and now we were down what, 50% yesterday. Um, Something ridiculous, right? That was the end of Monday, and then this was Tuesday, right? That was Tuesday. It's ridiculous. They have no idea what they're talking about. They see the share price and they say, what happened? And they say, oh, well, that must have caused it. And that's just not the case for a brand new company that just listed like this, and people are, it's going crazy. And, as to why we spiked way up and now we've come back down, and will we spike up again? I don't know. If I could predict the short term, movements of stocks, I'd be a billionaire at this point, right? Because it doesn't take too many correct calls to be um, to really multiply your money. But like nobody, I shouldn't say nobody. Hope maybe somebody can do it out there, but I sure as heck can't predict what stocks are going to in the short term. So I thought that was just absolutely ridiculous. To sort of read some of what they've written. So, anyways, I did want to talk about an article that is actually has some comparison, some discussion about the fundamentals of Knightscope. But I saw a Seeking Alpha article, and I will put the link in the description. You can you can search for it yourself if you want. I'll try to put the link in the description after the stream is over. But they said it looks overvalued, but they wouldn't want to be short because it's very volatile right now, and who knows when it might go back up to $20 or higher. Like I said, it's definitely still in price discovery mode. And so again, if anybody thinks they know what the stock's going to do in the short term, I think you're fooling yourself. But that's just me. But it was interesting, right? So I reading through this. Let's see. They got some. They at least looked into the company. They got some things right about the company. And they're talking about the actual robots here. And they mentioned some of the high profile accidents, and yeah, that's true. But I think I'll click through here, but I think all the accidents that have happened were years ago, right? I want to say the most recent one was in 2018. Let's see. There's an expectation that accidents are going to happen. Do they even say? No, that's all it is. But I think it's been years, right? It was famous. I think I mentioned this in my first stream where I sort of rambled on about the company for 40 minutes. That a robot drove into a fountain, and that was years ago, and it made the news. And I haven't seen anything, I think, since then, since what, 2017 or something. Um, and and I think that's but they do acknowledge, right? The company is ahead on the technology, and it's important, right? Because this is a growing market, and I think it's absolutely in its infancy, right? Because this is not something that people even ever think about, right? If I'm putting together security for my property or whatever, right? Like this isn't just not something that you think of, or you think you're hiring a security guard. Nobody thinks, hey, I'm gonna go hire a security robot. It's just not a legitimate even thing. Like, yeah, maybe it's in like the movies, right? It doesn't really exist, but it does here, right? And that's the crazy thing about the company, if they actually have a saleable product that does this right now. And they do acknowledge the long term market opportunity, right? The Knightscope, right? It's from the company, right? Same thing I presented, that they estimate there could be in the long term $41 billion of a market out there. And that's a ridiculous. When they go through some of the unit economics, I've talked about these before, and this comes from the investor presentation, so I assume a lot of you are pretty familiar with it. And that's pretty interesting. They didn't go very deep on that, right, in terms of losing money in the first year and how that actually impacts their cash flows. And I do, that's something that I will probably talk about more in the future when I have the time to really put together a good material to present here, and some of my thoughts there. But they talk about how unpredictable the shares have been. They did get the market cap wrong, at least as far as I consider the market cap, right? I think they're off by a factor of 5, and they're surprise, surprise, from the title, they're bearish. They think it's overvalued, and they thought it was overvalued at 200 million. I think it's actually the market cap is higher than that right now. So I'm sure they're probably uber bearish, right? They say, should it be worth over 200 million based on the fundamentals? No, not in their opinion. But I mean, what do they cite here, right? They said the revenues are small. We knew that, right? Nobody's buying this for their current revenues. They're buying it for their future revenues. They said, they're concerning low growth year over year, right? 10%. And that is true, right? I'll be honest, I invested a couple years ago, and I had expected to see much higher growth. But, let's give them a little bit of a pass here, that there was a global pandemic, and that caused a lot of issues, right? Think about it. We just talked about yesterday how a lot of their customers are casinos, and or that's one good market for them. In the past, they've said they had contracts at, I want to say, like malls, contracts at sports stadiums. And I mean, what do you think happened to all of those businesses last year? Like, they were cutting costs like crazy because all of their revenues were down. And I'm sure, like many other things, security probably got cut when they push comes to shove. You're gonna start cutting stuff that's not absolutely essential to your business, right? They're taking on more risk in terms of security, but hey, if you got to cut costs to keep your business open, then that makes sense, right? And they even say it's the gross loss is widening, and I agree, right? This is a business that has clearly been structured around growth, and when they're not growing, like the numbers look real bad. However, well, so I'll go on real quick. Then they talk about the machines and network. They said decrease. It was effectively flat, 52 to 51. And they do have that backlog, right? We've mentioned this before. They have a backlog of 24 robots, at least as of September 28th, a couple months ago, to deploy. That is kind of built in future revenue to be booked, right? They already have the sales, the contracts just waiting. But then they acknowledge right here they have 80-90 robots currently under contract. And hey, that was they had 51 in June 2021, and now it's January, and they have they said 80 to 90. It's actually, I think, more than 90 at this point. Actually pulled, I want to say this one up, right? This was the article that came out right around the time of the listing. When Bill said that the company got the capital in the IPO to expand the use of its security robots beyond the 90 that are deployed around the US today. Right? So the 90 that are deployed, 90 machines in network. This was January 27th, right? And so I'm not sure how they can put those in the same article and say, well, their growth has been horrible, less than 10% year over year, which was true as of their filings. But then they are aware that they have 90 robots out there that they grew from 51 like 6 months ago, 7 months ago, right? In June 2021, we had 51. If we were at 90, I think, they did a couple of those press releases recently. I think one of them was ambiguous if it was a sale or a new deployment, and the other one was a new sale. But if one of those, let's just call it 90 that are deployed right now, because we don't really know what the number is. 90, 51. That's 76. Yeah, 76% growth. Is that right? Yeah, 76% growth in 7 months, right? So that's like more than 100% annualized uh, growth in machines deployed, and they still had that backlog. Like seems a little. It's possible that they actually got that they burned through that backlog, but I actually don't think so. I think there was a more recent comment even in the start engine comments somewhere in here, and I don't have it up. Where Bill said their backlog was actually growing. He said that, because they have some issues. I'll try to dig that up and see if I can find that. Let me make a note of that. Robots growing. But I mean, I think he said that backlog is growing, right? So if you assume they have even more, that means that they've made that many new sales, right? They are growing 76% in 7 months. That's like over 100% annual growth. And I think what we're really seeing is we're seeing that they were on this steep growth trajectory, and then things sort of flattened off when we had a global pandemic, and a lot of their customers were commercial properties that were hurting quite a lot for business. So they were cutting costs, but you're seeing that growth kind of resume. And I agree with them in the sense that this is high risk, right? This is a business that has been structured for growth, and that's pretty obvious, right? They say they're chasing even in 10-year time frame, right? And forget about the long term. But 10 years is already pretty long term. $4.1 billion in revenue, right? And they're at like what is it? Oh geez, what are their numbers here? First half of 2021 with revenues of 1.78 million. So they're at what, like 3.5 million right now, right? They're trying to 1,000x in 10 years their revenues. Obviously, I'm sure that's a bit of a rosy picture, but they're built for growth. They're shooting for the moon here. And so yeah, they're either going to go to zero or they're going to go to the moon, as the cool kids say nowadays. And I just we are starting to see that growth. So I don't know how you can be super bearish and say that this is this is not. I don't know how you can really say a whole lot about the current valuation. That you can be super bearish on it because the market's forward looking and people are going to see that. So we'll see. And I mean, I do agree with them, right? I've said this before somewhere in here. Where is it at? That based on their operating cash outflow, that they're probably going to need to raise more money around the end of the year. And I've said something to that similar effect. I actually have a model, and I'll probably, like I say, go over that in a future stream. But I think it's just the growth, right? A fundamental thesis of investing in the company is that they're gonna grow quite a lot, and we've actually seen some of the evidence there. So I agree with what they say. Like I don't disagree with many other facts other than their market cap, right? Actually, I would compute it to be higher. But I think the growth we are starting to see there, and time will tell, right? That we don't completely know if that's going to continue or accelerate, but it's sure seems like there's a lot of potential catalysts in the next year or two that could be huge for the company and really change the sentiment from they're not growing to holy crap, this is growing real fast and has a huge runway ahead of it for growth. All right, that was most of what I covered today. I had a couple other things because I've seen just a couple of small things to cover. One was I've seen some comments online about insiders are cashing out, right? That's some of the reason for the sell off or the stock price going down, and maybe that's true for some of the rank and file employees, some of the early startup employees that got a small chunk of the company in terms of shares. But none of the officers, none of the management is selling out, right? And Bill actually said this on the, it might be too small for you to see, but he said, there's lockups for some people, right? There's a 6-month lockup for the directors and officers. Granted, the directors don't own any of the company, and I'm not sure if they're prevented from buying. But none of the directors owned any, right? We saw that from the Form 3s that got filed yesterday. And even the management that do own a good chunk of shares, or at least options, stock options, like none of them are going to be selling for the next 6 months. So we'll see what they do at the end of that 6 months, right? I think Bill, the CEO, has said, I think he said that he doesn't intend to sell for, something on the order of decades, right? For a long, long time. So we'll see. And I guess I didn't realize this, but there's some other investors that participate in some of the early rounds that also have a 90-day lockup. I actually haven't investigated that to see how large of a chunk of the company that is, but I'll be interested to see that. And then the rest of us normal folk who bought in 2017 and after, we don't really have any restrictions, right? We can convert at any time if you bought the preferreds, or if you were even in the pre-IPO listing that just bought the commons. Obviously, you can trade those. But I just want to set the record straight that, management is not selling out. They're not cashing in, right? They actually, some of them I know, I think was, I want to say it was Mallory and, what's his name? The general counsel, or Mallory is the CFO. The recent management hires in 2020 and 2021, I guess. I think the general counsel, they just hired him last year. And I'm blanking on his name. Sorry about that. But, I think they have options with strike prices. I think if some of it strikes at $10, maybe $8, right? So like some of their options are underwater now. So I'm sure they want to get that stock price back up. Real quick, one other thing I wanted to mention. I just put this in the title of the stream today, that this is the first day I actually saw shares available for shorting. Maybe there's some on the other days, but I basically saw the number 0 every time I had looked. Today, there were some shares available for folks who want to short the company. But man, the borrow rate, right? Early this morning when it first came up, I saw was 107%, and then it jumped to 167%, right? And it's at 174% right now. I mean, I don't know who would be, actually, it's higher. I was looking at this, it's 177%. Can you imagine 177%, right? And so, if you're not familiar, if you've been stuck with me this long for the stream, if you're not familiar with shorting, right? This is instead of normally you'd think of investing in a stock, you get to buy the stock, you pay your money, you buy the stock, and now you have the stock, and then later on you get to sell it and get the money back out, and hopefully you sell it for more than you bought it for, right? Shorting is when you are able to borrow a share from somebody and sell it, and you take that money up front, and then you, at a later point in time, you buy back a share on the open market and hand it back to that person that you originally borrowed it from. And, hopefully it goes down so that when you initially sell it, you get the money. And then when you buy it back, you're spending less of the money than what you took in when you initially sold. But the trick there is, well, why would anybody let you do that? Because the way shorting works is then you pay them interest, right? While you've borrowed their shares, that person still owns the share. You owe them a share, and there's a whole bunch of systems set up as making sure that you give them back that share. But in order to close out that position, you'll have to give them back that share. But in the meantime, while you are effectively the one who is able to benefit from that share, you pay them interest, and that's what this short borrow rate fee is. So people who are short the stock right now, who have borrowed shares, they're paying 177% annual interest on that. And sure, if the stock goes down 20% a day, they're making bank on that. But man, I wouldn't want to hold that for too long. And that also tells me there's just not that many shares available out there to short right now. And so either there's a very large short position, which we don't actually know how big the short position is, or there just aren't very many shares that have been put in this position to be available for shorting. So I don't know, but I thought that was really interesting. That's an astronomically high rate. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes over time. But I mean, in general, I think that's going to make people think twice before they short the stock, right? They're going to have to be really sure that it's going to go down. Because especially if the stock goes up and they have to close it out at a loss, like they paid a lot of interest in the meantime. Yeah. So that was all I wanted to cover today. Thank you for watching, and talk to you later.